Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie, and today I have a short and sweet video of most of Olive Ab's Gather collection for fall. So as you can see, we have a little quad of cream polishes here. We have a returning shade and 3 new ones. There is also supposed to be a returning topper part of this lineup, but I seem to have misplaced my bottle, so apologies for that. But I will share some more information on these at the end of the video after comparisons. For now, let me just show you the swatches. So first, let's take a look at the returning shade, which is Pebble. This is described as a smoky purple-gray cream that's perfectly balanced between being soft and moody. I don't even remember what collection this originally came out in, but I have loved this polish for so long. It is just such a cozy, smoky purple that I think is so flattering. There's just something about this color that really does something to my brain. As expected with Olive Ab creams, this had a really nice formula. I felt like it was a little on the crelly side, but perfectly opaque in 2 coats. Now onto the new shades. The first one we have is Forage, and this is described as a yellow-leaning olive green cream. And I would say that's definitely a very accurate way to describe this one, almost like a dark chartreuse, if that makes sense. And as you saw, the formula on this was impeccable. It was so full coverage on the first coat, super lush and creamy. I've mentioned in previous Olive Ab videos, so if you haven't watched them before, Olive Ab pretty much specializes in cream formulas, but like you saw between this and the last shade, they could either be slightly crelly leaning or super opaque. The next new shade we have is Raspberry, and this is described as a dusty rosy pink. In a shock to the nation, this is my favorite polish. I just love this color so much. I love that it's that perfect balance between being red and pink, and it has this certain mutedness, but it's not too dusty. Like, it still has a nice pop of color, if that makes sense, at least for a fall shade. And this had another amazing formula. And the last new shade we have is Eventide, which is described as a dusty navy cream. This one was so satisfying. Just, again, another super creamy, lush, and pigmented formula. Really full coverage on the first coat alone, so maybe it could pass for a 1-coater if your nails are shorter. At least I would do that, or try to get away with it if I'm in a rush. But of course, we are doing 2 coats just to make sure everything is fully evened out. And yeah, the color is so beautiful. I love navies and dusty, moody blues, but this one still has a certain vibrancy to it too. And here is my collage of my full hand swatches of the Gather collection in 2 coats in direct sunlight. So hopefully you can see what I mean by some of the shades, like the red and blue, having a certain level of vibrancy, but they're still very much fall colors. Now for comparisons, the closest purple that I have to Pebble is Gaze from Olive Ab, which is another dusty sort of red-toned purple. But as you can see, that one is a bit darker and maybe not as grayed out. There's almost a certain level of mauviness to Pebble, so honestly, it kind of reminded me of Crack's Simply Mauvelous Darling, but that one's more of a true mauve in a jelly formula. So even though they might look kind of similar in terms of like their mutedness in the bottle, on the nail, they are so different. Then for Forage, I have Olive Ab's Olive, which is another olive green, as well as ILNP's Treetop, which is kind of like an olive green, maybe a little grassy or mossy, but as you can see, they're both a bit deeper than Forage. Maybe Treetop is slightly closer, but they just don't really compare. So for some other slightly lighter greens, I thought maybe Olive Ab's Not Pressed would be closer, but that one is much more vibrant. And also for reference, here is Crack's Moss Draped from their somewhat recent Rainforest collection. I feel like Forage might be a good in-between because it has that yellowy color similar to Holo Taco, but it's more muted like Cracked. Next for raspberry, I was so sure this was going to be a dupe for LA Colors Wildflowers, which is one of my favorite shades that they have, but that one's a little bit more vibrant and maybe more red leaning. It doesn't have that dusty rose quality to it. And for another dusty rosy pink, I pulled out Zoya's Marcia, but that one's just a bit more pink. So then I thought maybe raspberry would be closer to Crack's Strawberry Jam or Tyche Lacquer's Balsam and Wood Sorrel from their most recent collection. That one does have a shimmer, but as far as like the base color goes, it's kind of similar. But surprisingly, despite Strawberry Jam being a jelly, I feel like it was pretty close. It's just a smidge more red. And lastly, I have OPI's My Solar Clock is Ticking, which is the only other shade that I thought would be kind of similar in my collection. And they kind of have a similar value, but the OPI is a little bit more terracotta leaning. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an even closer OPI or Essie shade. And finally for Eventide, I figured I could show it next to the most recent Cracked Blues. So we have Crowfriend on the left and Stroll After Dark on the right. Obviously they don't really compare. I think the closer blue from Cracked is Bluebell Bonnet, just because it's almost this vibrant mid-tone blue. And then I pulled out Zoya's Brett, which is another navy, but more of like a true navy, so it's a lot darker. But Eventide is still a bit more dusty, almost having this denim color compared to Bluebell Bonnet. And for some other navy blues that I thought would be close, I pulled out Static's Rio and Essie Expressie's Left on Shred, but these are both a bit too dark. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Olive Ave's Gather collection, or most of it. These actually did launch a couple of weeks ago. I'm just a little behind on sharing, but yeah, I'm just so pleased with this lineup. I feel like Olive Ave does such beautiful fall shades. And I know for a while, like in the first couple of years of her business, they had really repetitive color stories, just like slightly different. And I can sort of see that with this lineup too, especially with the blue and the green, but as you saw in the comparisons, they are quite different. I'm really happy to see Pebble come back because, as you probably know, I feel like I'm just so picky when it comes to muted purples. More often than not, when it's a muted, cooler tone purple, where it's almost like a gray purple, I don't end up loving it. And even though this is pretty grayed out, I feel like because it's a warmer tone of purple, it's just so much more flattering. And for the new shades, I feel like it's not surprising that raspberry is gonna be my top favorite. That is just such an ideal fall color for me. And I love that it is like a nice, bright kind of pop of color compared to the typical fall palette that is, you know, a lot more muted, especially with like the browns and greens. And if you were curious about Evolve, which is the topper that's a part of this lineup too, I will have my original review video linked at the end if you want to see my initial like swatch and comparisons of it. I still like the idea of a biodegradable glitter topper. Like, it's really cool in that way, but I remember not being super in love with it just because it doesn't really have the same kind of sparkle as other micro glitter toppers. But it does have a nice little subtle pop of a copper color, so if you are going for something that's like a lot more subtle, I think you would like that topper. But if you're somebody who's used to, you know, more bling on your nails, that one might not be for you. But yeah, I would love to hear what you think about these or which one is your favorite down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.